We're grateful that you've joined us. I have to thank Ellis Couture, based in Site 3, Tema. And Tema, well, before today, it used to be called the Harbour City. I don't know why it was called the Harbour City as it is, because it used to be one of the cleanest. These days you go around, you see a lot of kiosks or stalls, etc. and the frontages. The TDC does its best, but also the Tema Metropolitan Assembly also try to do as much as they can. The exigencies of the time also means that you have to let people survive, so they try to live within the period that they are. But Ellis Couture will get you the latest when it comes to men and women's fashion trends. And Ellis is a woman though, but does some great cuts, and the stitches are also nice. Ellis Couture in Tema. Thank you very much. I have some great people to give some giveaways to, and that is you. We're sorry that we're not able to stream on our pages today, TV3 Ghana, as well as the rest of the subsidiary pages, but we're rectifying that with Mark Zuckerberg, especially on Facebook, and then with Elon Musk subsequently as well. And then we'll get it all done. In the meantime, make sure that you join us real time right here. We have Dewa 539 Chop Money. It goes with a short code *446#, and 539 increases your chances of winning. And this one, the draw takes place at 10 a.m. every morning and 7 p.m. every evening. It's managed by the National Lotteries Authority through Radio Entertainment on the Caritas platform. So make sure that you join us. They also play Sunday Special. It's exclusively on Sundays, and you get to win big at 6 p.m. And so when you dial *446#, you select option 2 to make sure that you play Dewa 539 Chop Money, option 1 to play for the evening draw, and then you pick between the ranges of the numbers 1 to 39, and then you can pen them. So you win 20 times your stake with Direct 1, 40 times with Direct 2, 400 times with Direct 3. And then with Direct 4, you get to have 50,000 times being the win, and that will be with Direct 5 as well. So just in case you have any of those customer complaints or contributions, and many of you have been saying that sometimes when you play, you do the PEMs, you're not able to get through the winning tickets. And so please, the numbers will be 055 62 59 249. Please call that, or go to dewa-nle.com to get the latest updates. We also have Cash Out. Cash Out goes with the short code *439#. But look, we also have Art Therapy. Now, Art Therapy also means that you have to save the date and come, let's have fun together with friends and loved ones at Airport West Hotel, whilst we sip and also paint at the same time. So you know how they do it these days. The Art Therapy program comes off Saturday, 28th of October 2023 at the Airport West Hotel. For just 220 Ghana cedis per head, get a package that comes with complimentary drinks and finger foods. We encourage you not to come alone, because you need to chill, you know, so you also get to paint. Usually they do that. Sometimes you go to events, you are painting, etc. For further inquiries and also booking for your event, call 020 433 9005 or 050 1634 238, or many of those available outlets on social media. Come, let's network and socialize. As we do that, it's at the Airport West Hotel, and passion for excellent service is their hallmark. Let me just introduce our guest for the morning. He's the known entrepreneur, marketing consultant. He's also a real estate mogul right here, a politician as well. And Eric Amwakuchum is our lead guest, communicating for the government of Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo. And he's here. Good morning to you, Eric.
Good morning.
Okay.
Roland. How are you?
I'm well, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
As always.
Thank you. Thank you. So too, you. And then we have two lawyers who have also joined us with varied expertise. Chairman of the Political Affairs Committee of the CPP is also an energy consultant, has been traveling the last couple of weeks, so hasn't had time for himself, but he's made time for us today. We're grateful. Lawyer Kwame Jantwa, thank you for joining us.
Good morning, Roland.
Thank you very much.
How is you?
I did top. And then also, Philemon La is also a legal practitioner. Are you going to the court today, Philemon? Good morning to you.
Yes, I have a matter later on in the day. Good morning.
Okay.
Good morning, Roland.
Good morning. It's raining out there, so please be careful.
Absolutely.
All right. We also have to send our condolences to the family of the Boachi Danquest and Intel Ferrata for repaying fee. And, well, Palgrave, our own regular on the show, Palgrave Boachi Dankwa, is interning the mother today. We have to say, may her soul rest in peace. And Palgrave, our condolences are with you and the family. The matter is about Atuesian. Well, before the collapse of his bank, Capital Bank, he was one of the leading entrepreneurs in the banking sector, as well as in other derivatives. But following a Bolder's report, the Bank of Ghana began a number of actions. In August 2017, the Bank of Ghana revoked the license of Capital Bank and declared it insolvent. Okay. Following that also, we had other banks that followed suit. In 2019, in October, Atuesian and 3 others were charged with multiple counts of stealing and money laundering of various sums. And this were in excess of some 200 million Ghana cedis. Subsequently, by 2022 in December, that will just be the last December, Atuesian entered into an agreement to refund 90 million cedis or in forfeiture be sentenced. All other accused persons are found not guilty of the charges. In 2023, April this year, the Attorney General applied for custodial sentence saying the payment terms have been breached. And by October, we're talking just this month, Atuesian received a sentence of 15 years for failing to pay up the rest of the 90 million because 37 million of that 90 million had been paid. It's quite an interesting journey for Atuesian, a man of boldness who has his boss or mentor being Pastor Mensah Otabil, who apparently also was the chairman of the bank. What do you make of this, Eric?
Well, I mean, good morning to you. Good morning to my senior Kwame and my friend. To be honest with you, I think that the matter has been running for a while. It's come to a certain conclusion. I mean, but even when it comes to these legal matters, it can probably go all the way to the Supreme Court, isn't it? I mean, if they so wish to appeal. So let's see how that particular issue pans out. I would look at it from a slightly different perspective. You know, in the last few days or so, our friends from the NDC said that they were going to the Bank of Ghana to ask for the resignation of the governor. And I would have looked at it from a different perspective. Because, I mean, if, for example, they said they were going on a demonstration for some kind of reforms, and especially even making sure that the BOG is up to scratch when it comes to its supervisory and all that. Because for the life of me, I feel that we need to delve into how, at the time, the supervision of this particular entity and the monies, you mentioned the Bolder's report.
Yes.
Right, the monies that were actually given to Capital Bank in terms of
for
restructuring and everything, and then really absolutely
liquidity support.
The liquidity support, absolutely no supervision was actually done to get to this point. We can't be a people where when people are jailed or sent to prison and that becomes the end of the matter. You understand what I'm saying? We need to get to the bottom of it. How did we get to that point? Another thing, per my experience as well, you had some of the top 5, if you like, audit firms, accounting firms, actually auditing the books of some of these entities and claiming that they were actually up to scratch. You know, and so for me, we can look at it from a certain sensational standpoint and say, well, somebody has found himself in bother with the laws and they've been sent to prison, and so then that's the end of the matter. There has to be a proper introspection to get to the bottom of how we were able to allocate 600 million Ghana cedis for liquidity support, and yet there were people at the Bank of Ghana at that time who actually shirked in their responsibility. You know, because if we want to build this nation, we have to move away from, if you like, the very trivial sensationalism to the core of the issues. And, you know, so you can invite me to talk about UACN and all that. As far as I'm concerned, it's going through a legal process.
But we have to be holistic about it.
We have to be holistic about it.
The conversation.
The conversation. And so even when I say Bank of Ghana, I'm not even referring to an individual. I'm referring to the institution. And you see, because we like the, you know, like local parlance, the funky aspect of the conversations, we lose sight of the real issues there. Because it's not just Capital Bank. There were other institutions. There were other microfinance institutions, other banks, and all the other savings and loans institutions that were all giving some of these support. And the regulatory authority that was supposed to supervise over these entities checked in their responsibility. You understand? So in all of these, if like there's an ecosystem, you pick up or you take one individual out and you take them through a legal process. Of course, that is the right thing to do. But let's get to the bottom of it so that it does not happen again. You understand my point? Right. So, I mean, once this thing has happened, I believe strongly that maybe the Bank of Ghana itself and the other agencies in the Securities and Exchange and all of that will come out and tell us how we would be able to forestall some of these challenges going forward. As we speak, some of the audit agencies that were actually responsible for auditing some of these banks should have been telling us how they were able to miss these things. You understand? So then once we're able to have a proper holistic appreciation of the issues, it means that it is not going to happen again. But if we go by the real, like, trivial aspect of the matters and say, oh, well, he's responsible, the courts have taken its course, we've gone through a process, he's been accused of stealing, they found that he's culpable, and we've thrown him to jail for 15 years. And so what? The real issues are there. Are we in a situation where, as we speak, the supervision is up to scratch? Are the regulatory issues being done properly? Do we know for a fact that if now we are auditing these banks, we know for a fact that they are actually doing the right thing? That's where we have to go. That's how the conversation, for me, after this thing, should be.
So who would you say should handle that side of the challenge?
No, but that's what I'm saying. It's a
if so, should those people who were supposed to supervise, if they did their job, should they also be punished?
My honest opinion is that if the people who were superintending over the Bank of Ghana at the time, who were directly responsible for this thing happening, should have some questions to answer. You understand? And not necessarily to even throw them in jail, but to give us a reason how they were able to ascertain that these banks needed liquidity support, give them the liquidity support all right, but didn't go back to check if they were using it for the right purposes. Okay. You understand what I'm saying? That, for me, is extremely important. Otherwise, then it's business as usual. Maybe 4, 5, 6 years down the line, another issue of this nature will crop up, and we will say, oh, if we had known, we have put together proper reforms and structures and mechanisms in place to forestall this thing. That's my view on this matter.
Mr. La, at the end of the conversation, when these actions were begun by the Bank of Ghana, of course, led by Dr. Nessa Addison, and we're told that those who were undertaking supervision within the supervision department of the Bank of Ghana in their work compromised themselves because of actions they undertook, even though they saw that these shareholders, including the gentleman, flouted all banking and risk management rules. And I'm reading for sections of the Boulders report. Okay. And at the time, we're told that he, Mr. Asian, used depositors' money to divert some of those monies into other investments without recourse to lay down procedures, especially when it comes to what the Bank of Ghana Act itself says on action that need to be taken by the board. And some of those investments included Ocean Spring mineral water manufacturing company, some were in bottling, some were into realty, some even in external bank accounts in Switzerland, etc. But we're also told that in making the decision, these actions were taken because the Bank of Ghana said it wanted to save depositors' funds. In your own assessment, looking at what the outcome of this case is, do you think that is a good justification for the decisions that were taken in collapsing those banks, including Capital Bank?
Right.
Mr. La.
Rula. Good morning, and good morning to my colleague panelists. Before I even delve into the issues, let me use this opportunity to call on the youth of Ghana, the youth of the NDC, to join us in a cleanup exercise at the office of His Excellency John Dramani Mahama on the 16th of this month. We shall be cleaning the premises.
Is it not the same day that Fixing the Country movement is doing?
What are they doing that day?
Yeah, okay. There was a press conference that was undertaken by Mr. Owusu Bempah, NS Owusu Bempah.
Okay.
He's leading the movement.
Okay.
And they had a press conference yesterday.
Right.
They said they were undertaking a demonstration at the office of the former president.
You want to protest at the office of John Mahama?
That's what they said.
Oh, really?
You are now aware. This public
I haven't followed that.
Okay.
But what I'm just doing is I'm calling on the youth of this country to join us as we clean the premises. You know, there are a few weeds around.
Okay.
So come with your cutlasses, your hooves, your mattocks, your ricks,
Okay.
and let's clean the place. It's important for us to...
Roland,
Okay.
Roland,
Please go
are
ahead.
you using
All right, so
this your
now-
platform to allow for such irresponsible
What do you mean by
conversation?
irresponsible?
I mean,
Eric, I take exception. I take exception to the
but
use of that
listen,
word.
It's extremely irresponsible.
No,
What do you mean by
I
that?
think
It
it's,
is.
it's,
You
Why?
know, you
it's,
see,
it's
listen,
irresponsible
Why?
of you to
It's-
call...
let me
Why?
say,
Why?
let me be very clear, right? The media has a responsibility to forestall some of these issues. You understand what I'm saying? And you can feign ignorance, you can feign all sort of play ostrich, right? And when any issue arises, it's almost as if that is always the political elite that are supposed to be responsible. You can't allow your platform to be used by this gentleman to propagate these things that he's talking about, bring coals and cutlasses to go and do what? Do you understand? And you can sit here and pretend that you don't know
They're doing
exactly
clean-up
what
exercise.
he's talking about.
Clean-up.
Come on. I mean, sometimes we need to
Eric,
be...
I intend to be civil.
No,
When he spoke, we
no,
all
but
kept quiet and
yeah,
loud.
that's what I'm saying.
This
You
is
can
my-
be
this
as
is my
civil.
bite
You
of
can
the
be
cherry.
as civil as you want, right? But I cannot be sitting on this platform for you to be saying these things without me actually interjecting. That would be extremely irresponsible of me.
So far,
and the
I
point
don't-
is
I
that
don't
you
get
see
the
that
point you're
it
making.
is
The point
also
is that what?
it
We
is
cannot
also
clean up
it
the
is
office of His
also
Excellency?
it is also the hypocrisy of it. Do you understand what I'm saying? When I was coming, I listen to this platform all the time. The hypocrisy of it is that in the last couple of days, you guys were involved in some demonstration or the other,
Which of all?
right? You're at the NDC.
The Occupy-
The Occupy,
DOJ.
whatever it is that they were talking about. And you had certain issues with the fact that you were being prevented by the police and all of those things. Now, another entity, which is also Ghanaian, had decided that they want to pitch or picket or do whatever somewhere, and you're asking your people to bring cutlasses and hoes to go to the same spot, and you're sitting here pretending that you don't know what he's talking about.
I know what he's talking about. He says that it's a cleanup exercise. Is that not it?
It is a
Okay,
cleanup
please go ahead.
exercise the youth of this country would be embarking on at the office of John Mahama. And first of all, I think that Eric must learn to be decorous. Using words as irresponsible, I respect
I am
it.
extremely decorous
I do
because
not-
It
if
says
you
that
do
you
this,
use,
I am, yes,
you-
I am
That
extremely
is
In
decorous.
announcing-
that
in
is
announcing-
unfortunate.
That's
You
a
do
youth
not-
wing.
You do not
I'm
own Ghana more than
extremely
any
decorous.
youth.
Okay.
You do not own Ghana more than any youth.
All right.
If a supposed group somewhere wants to embark on an activity, do we not reserve the right as youth of the NDC to also hold our own? Do we not?
Please
Are
go
there
ahead.
not laid
He
down
says- he
procedures?
says that you-
No, the point is that we must establish
He-
that there are
he-
laid down procedures.
he insists.
If I am now learning that a certain group wants to protest, is there not a laid down procedure?
You're even lying on
Have they
national
followed that
television.
procedure? Have they followed that procedure?
So you're undertaking a cleanup exercise?
Yes, we are doing a
on the
cleanup
same day.
exercise.
Okay.
On the 16th, I am not aware of any group doing anything. But if they want to protest like he's saying,
But I'm
there's a laid
informing
down
you there's a
procedure.
group that has been given official permits
But the
by
question
the
I'm-
police.
But you guys can go and
The
picket
point
the
is
Jubilee
that
House, but
we-
nobody can picket another.
We will be cleaning the office
Area
of John
in this
Mahama.
country.
And,
Is that
and
what
he
you
But
says
now back
that
to the
it could
issues of-
lead to a confrontation.
We are civil. The NDC has been civil all along. You know that. We are not those that send people to go and vandalize studios. A certain party, the NPP, has a track record of that. We do not have that track record. So if you are talking about a certain fear of vandalism, it's your own party people you should be worried about. A party of a party whose youth cannot be controlled. So if people from your party intend to
protest... Loyola, please go ahead and let's find out.
Yes,
language,
I intend to go into the matters, but I mean, he interjected. He went into my point. But on the issue of the collapse of the banks, I think it's important for us to, consider outcomes at the end of the day. Because I'm aware that the government ended up spending about 25 billion in the said attempt to clean up the banking industry. And this has come in its wake several issues. There's been job losses, there have been collapses of businesses, there have been a ripple effect on how people are able to afford a cost of living. It is even projected about 600,000 jobs have been lost as a result of the collapse of the bank. And our point is that if Ato Essien, a young man, forget about all the mistakes he would have made, forget about all the fact that he's messed up, he's been convicted at the end of the day, but let's look into the fact that this is a young man who, in very extreme circumstances, was able to set up a business. There were corporate governance issues. There was the spending of money he shouldn't have spent. But the fact of the matter is that the world over, when banks mess up, the government comes in to solve, to help them to revive. We do not close them. We do not cause unemployment. Look at America. There are several examples of how banks, in fact, 2000, we remember the famous financial crunch in America and how the government of America had to intervene. So indeed,
Fannie Mae and some of those ones.
Yes. So the fact of the matter is that indeed the banks may have erred. Most of them have erred. And the government of the day had a responsibility to mitigate rather than destroy. And for me, it is a distraction we are talking about. Because unemployment has been occasioned. Businesses have collapsed. Look all around the country. You see various buildings of GN Bank lying. Nothing is happening. Loss of business. And this is a bank that was employing people. People were able to afford and pay for the fees of their children, afford meals on their tables. So for me, it's about the outcome. And I think that the government should have considered the fact that their said intervention in the banking industry would have brought and occasioned a lot of difficulties on the people of this country. But fundamentally, let's remember that this same Bank of Ghana, which has presided over all of this, is the same Bank of Ghana that has printed 77 billion, contrary to what the law allows. We know that the law says that if there's going to be an overdraft, you must do an overdraft of about 5% of the previous year's GDP. But this government, under Addison, has printed 5%, precisely 5%. But this government under Addison has printed in excess of 40%.
What's the link, Loyola?
The link here is that this Bank of Ghana has presided over monumental losses. If a young man who attempted to do something for himself, create jobs, create businesses, support people, is being convicted today of 15 years, what will happen to Addison? And I call that Addison must step down for its recklessness, for the collapse of the banking industry, for the corruption at the Bank of Ghana, for the insensitivity, building a headquarters at the time that the people of Ghana are suffering, at the time that interest rate is at an all-time high, inflation, all-time high, at the time that the exchange rate has never been this high. The dollar is about 12 cedis. So the point is that the Bank of Ghana, which is said to be the regulator in all of these issues, is itself complicit. And we must call out the Bank of Ghana. But fundamentally, it's also important for us to realize that...
Sorry, I want you to clarify. When you say the exchange rate has never been high, this one, do you mean the current one, or when we look at how the exchange rate rose within a certain duration?
It's risen. Now, never have we had a dollar at $1 to 12 cedis in this country.
But it went to 15.
Yes, 15. Well, it's been higher. So the highest, the point that the highest it has ever been recorded.
So he's saying that
the point that it hasn't been worse. That's the point. I get the point. That's even an addition.
Yeah.
It has been worse under this government.
Okay.
Never has our currency been this low.
So your point is that the Bank of Ghana cannot play a double-edged sword.
The Bank of
where
Ghana,
its own complicit
it is the Bank of
based
Ghana,
on your accusation.
The Bank of Ghana itself is complicit.
Okay.
Yes, Ato Essien has he has his right of appeal. He has the right to go back to the Court of Appeal or even to the Supreme Court to seek redress. He can do that. He's been convicted. He can appeal. But the point is that yes. The point that he's been convicted. But the Bank of Ghana itself has issues, and the call must be respected that the Bank of Ghana and his deputies must resign, because they are chairmanship and leadership of the Bank of Ghana has occasioned a lot of burdens on the people of this country.
All right. So now let's get to Mr. Tuah-Yeboah. He's the Deputy Attorney General, and he's been explaining what the plea bargaining was prior to this very judgment, which now has occasioned the imprisonment 15 years of Ato Essien. And then we'll come back to Lawyer Jantua and get some insights.
If he gets the money to pay, that's another ball game. We'll look at it. Because after a court even delivers its ruling or judgment, the court becomes factus official. And so my expectation is that when he pays, then perhaps it will go into litigate when he wants to appeal against the sentence. But I'm here to get a full ruling. We'll go through it and see what the judge said. But so far as we are concerned, he's been sentenced into 15 years imprisonment. Let's hope that he gets the money to pay. And let me also add, even if he's going to serve the 15 years, Ghanaians have also benefited somehow because at least 37 million has been paid to the state. If he had been sentenced last year, we couldn't have even recovered a CD or a PESWA. So there's now utility in the decision that we took last year concerning our decision to enter into an agreement with him to take advantage of Section 35. If nothing at all, the state is now richer by 37+ million Ghana cedis.
The goal is to recover the monies, but Capital Bank is one of several banks that collapsed. And I mean, what happens to the other banks that are pending? I mean, you need to recover those monies as well to the customers.
Yeah, as we speak, we have other cases in court. Beige Capital is in court. We are hearing the matter, and then I don't know when we'll be able to finish, but we've gone far. UT is also in court. Then you have other banks, Dr. Dufour's Bank, they're also in court. So there's a series of cases in court. We are doing them one after the other. And let's get there.
And Lawyer Jantua, it looks like a string of shareholders and individuals who are managing these banks, apart from Ato Essien, who are before the courts. Now, from what the Attorney General is saying, even though you have redress, you still serve some jail time at the end of the day because you say you pay some money you've not been able to pay based on your own plea. That should be a good sign that those who were complicit, who flouted the regulations, the banking regulations of our country, will be held responsible for their own actions in office.
Good morning.
While they operated their banks.
Good morning to our viewers, your fellow panelists. With this particular case, is Ato Essien, yeah?
Ato Essien.
He pleaded guilty. He accepted and pleaded guilty. It wasn't the fact that he had pleaded not guilty, and so the court needed to prove him guilty. He pleaded guilty and then further went into plea bargaining. So where does he appeal? On what grounds would he appeal? Because he's pleaded guilty to the charge. And remember, he was convicted. It was the plea bargaining that did what? That halted the sentencing. It was the plea bargain that halted the sentencing. And he was supposed to go according to the terms and conditions of the plea bargain. And unfortunately, he wasn't able to. And when you look at the reasons that the judge gave in sentencing him, they're quite grave. They're quite grave reasons. The fact that he had taken depositors' money, the fact that he deliberately and calculatedly did what he did. But then it brings into focus, if he has been sentenced to 15 years, and the bit that even gets to me, that saddens me, is the hard labor. If he has been convicted so harshly, then it's up to authorities to now look at the board. There's a board, isn't there?
There's a board. It was chaired by Pastor Mensah Otabil.
And what's the board's responsibility? To make sure that the company is run well. Did the board not see that such was going on? They should be questioned. They should be questioned. They should come, they should take them to court for us to see what their role was. But Ghana being what it is, they will take it that this is okay, so let's move on. But no, And I agree with Eric when he looks at the other side of the entire case. If this were any other country, they would go down the chain. Anybody who had supervisory authority over this would be questioned.
And flouts them.
And exactly. And they will have to be taken to court to answer. Because in the end, who has had to pay? It's not government, though. It's the people's taxes. It's the people's taxes. Yes? I do not, in fact, from the word go, I did say that I don't think the banks should have been closed down.
Why?
I didn't think so. Ghanaian jobs. Because if for nothing at all, you now give the foreign banks a much higher competitive advantage because they were able to bring in funds from their mother banks to shore them up. These were Ghanaian jobs. If for nothing at all, the fact that and I'll use a political example, the fact that the executive is messing up, the fact that the executive is messing up does not mean that we don't shore up and make sure that at least certain things can run. And so I was dead against the closing of the banks. Dead against. We could have re-engineered it in a way where those banks could still, be there. And now look at what has happened with the Bank of Ghana and the DDE and all that. It's further even exacerbated the problem. And so for me, we shouldn't have gone down that line. We went down that line and we still spent taxpayers' money in doing that kind of job. 25 billion? I'm sure it was more than 25 billion.
4 years ago, it was 14 billion. Then now it's officially...
Couldn't we have used that money for something else? If the banks were there today, wouldn't they be productive? Because we would make sure that we put in the right regulations. But no. And a bank like GN Bank, the thing about GN Bank, they went into the nooks and crannies of rural areas. The rural folk were using GM Bank as their bank, and they were able to save. And what does it do? It builds the capacity of people in the rural areas who have no idea of banking. But GM Bank is there, so they begin to build capacity in there. But what did we do? So for me, in as much as it is sad, in as much as such a thing has happened, I hope that they will be able to go through everything with a fine-tooth comb. And don't turn around and tell me that the banks were, the authorities were right in doing what they've done in terms of Capital Bank and putting, it's the private sector.
Yes.
It's the private sector. What about the public sector? We can call this corruption, can't we? At least we can call it corruption. What about the public sector? The way we have handled these banks and we're taking them to court, the Attorney General is saying he's taking them to court. What about public sector agencies? Are we going to do a similar thing? So let's see.
Well, I've loved the call at the beginning of this that we said we wanted to do a dispassionate conversation. And the thing is, the reality is the Bank of Ghana has a decision to make. If you listen to Isaac Adongo, on the other hand, he will tell you that the other decision was to make sure you salvage instead of saying that you wanted to make the banks go into administration. At the end of the day also, we know that there are comprehensive asset quality review reports dating back 2014, 2015, which did indicate that even by 2015, and Eric, the banks had been given in excess money and were still being supported by 2016. And it's, of course, some of those 610 million. Now, the question that I put to all of us here is, just like Ato Essien as a shareholder of the bank, or a founder of the bank, of course, but invariably a shareholder of the bank, has been prosecuted. Could we have looked at the other side of the decision-making, where the banks, Capital Bank IE, for example, could have been operating, its founding shareholder is jailed. We have, let's say, the Amalgamated Trust, that is a government special purpose vehicle that has kicked in now, could have been operating the bank, and the shareholder is jailed because he's not been able to, based on his own plea bargaining, pay up. That was also a possibility, wasn't it, Eric, as a businessman?
No. So I think that, I mean, like you're saying, this whole thing started a while back. You know, if I'm not wrong, I think that the Borders report was actually sanctioned by the NDC administration at the time, isn't it? There was some work that was done.
Yes.
And then I think under WAMPA.
Yes, it was sanctioned by the management of the Bank of Ghana during the period.
So they now became privy and appreciated the issues in these various banks. And that necessitated the allocation of the monies for the liquidity support and everything. And then they went back to sleep. Right? Now, there's even part of the reports that suggested that some of the monies actually found its way back to some of these persons in the name of what do you call business development and all sorts of things. Now, not that I'm so excited about people going to jail and all of those things, but the reality of the ground is that that's why we have to now drill down into the report to find out at every stage in the process where we went wrong. So if these persons who were providing these supervisory roles at the time should be able to tell us how they were able to go to sleep and how we were able to get to the point where apart from the, what do you call it, the depositors' monies, the monies that were also given by the Bank of Ghana was also transferred into other businesses that had absolutely no relation with that. So the point really is that if we're really going to stem this thing and not get to this point, we have to go into the report properly and have a proper analysis and appreciation of it. Then the auditing aspect of it. You know, because you see, when it comes to auditing, I think that I'm being a bit careful here. The whole essence of auditing is not necessarily to find people culpable of doing something, but to even audit the processes and systems and all of the things that you're doing to ensure that if you're found to be doing certain things that goes against the regulatory authorities' guidelines, then you are sanctioned. And so the first thing that I would ask is that what were the auditors also doing? And you know the funny thing, even when it came to the foreclosure and liquidation and all of those things, these same audit firms, the top 5, 6, 7 audit firms, were the ones that were actually asked to handle these things, right? So in other jurisdictions, a proper analysis would have been done. We would have delved deeper into the issues to see that these are the things. I mean, when people are making the call that maybe the banks should have been saved and all of that, I mean, those are views that can be preferred. I mean, hindsight is
what do you think?
Hindsight is a beautiful thing. At the point when you are making these decisions, you are also being faced with certain considerations. At the forefront of government's decision was to ensure that depositors' monies were safe, right? And so whilst you're doing that, for every public policy decision that you take, there are certain persons that would find themselves in some kind of, if like border. And some people lost their jobs and all of those things. That's unfortunate and all of those things. But you had 3-4 million Ghanaians who had their monies in these banks who were exposed. And so you'd have to make a judgment call. You know, so what is the trade-off? You understand what I'm saying?
Do you think the trade-offs were good?
No, but that's what I'm saying. That
mine was in hindsight. Mine was in hindsight.
No, I'm saying that.
Because from the word go,
I'm saying that a decision.
They shouldn't have
a decision. I think that when we've been very sincere with ourselves, the conversations have been. People have interviewed the finance minister, and he's made certain comments about maybe he would have made a different decision if presented a different set of facts and all of this. I'm saying that those decisions have been made. Some people have lost their jobs. It's unfortunate. Some businesses that were even indirectly working with these banks had also had to lose their businesses and all this. But in the bigger scheme of things, we had to save the whole financial system from total collapse. We have to save depositors' monies to ensure that they don't lose their investments and everything. Even as we speak, there are still fallouts from a couple of days ago. I think it was Gold Coast management, whatever, in terms of...
Mr. Makuchi, doesn't it bear testimony to the fact that the decision itself for the banks to go into administration was problematic? Because what we intended to cure, being the remedies, really...
No, but
also
I mean, my brother Philemon, right, made a mention of the fact that in times past when some similar incident happened in the U.S. and all of those things, these banks were saved. But after a few years, some of these banks actually had to go into some kind of administration and merge and change ownership and all that.
Some of
There
them,
were,
not all of
there
them.
were
Some of them would
a couple of
survive.
them, even in the UK, there's like Northern Rock and all of those things had challenges, and they had to, at a point, be taken off from the landscape. You know what I'm saying? But I am saying that because of the amount of money that had to actually go to these banks, even to support them, to make sure that they stay afloat, we would have done a better job if we had supervised them properly. Now, anybody that calls for a certain, if you like, inquest or an inquiry to figure out exactly, if even as we speak today, even for nothing at all, we need to be able to be comfortable with the fact that the supervision as we have it today is up to scratch. And I'll be happy with
Okay.
it.
Now, Loyola, there's a key consideration that have been argued, whether it's the minority side of the House, led by either Ato Forson or also Isaac Adongo, and then even some key stakeholders in the financial institutions who tend to watch the financial sector as well, and in academia, who have argued that for considerations of either nationalistic purposes, you know, if you go to other countries, you tend to nationalize certain entities to make sure that there is a forward-looking objective to make sure what is theirs is theirs. There are certain key banks, like GN Bank, some others, like Unibank, for example. At the time, they couldn't meet the
minimum capital
the capital adequacy ratio when it came to that. The capitalization as being capped by the Bank of Ghana was not met by them. But they had liabilities sitting as assets on their books that were in the hands of government. So contractors owed them, etc. Could these have overlapped the key considerations of weak banking practices and flouting of regulations, in your view?
Yeah, indeed. The reports show that some of the banks had corporate governance issues.
Yes.
Aside the liability of government.
Actually, clearly.
In fact, we know that this government has even borrowed the most from banks, making it difficult for businesses to be able to borrow. That's a fact. So if the government has borrowed as much money from banks, and the government yet again is unable to pay its debt to the banks, who do you blame here? Do you blame the bank, innocent bank, or do you blame the government? So I think the government has not been very fair. And I must say that some of the banks, there was no one criteria of error that applied to all the banks.
That's true.
In fact, some of the banks were good and could have been saved. Look at Heritage Bank. Why do you kill something that just needs a walking stick to be able to survive? Someone has a waist problem. All he needs is a walking stick for probably a month, and then he'll be able to come up straight, and then you say, no, kill the person. That is exactly what this government did. Because banks like Heritage Bank, Unibank could have been saved. And I think that feeds into the conversation of, I've seen around a certain book called a Japa book. And the contents of this book is plain right before our very eyes. Roland, have you seen the book?
I've seen it. I've read it now.
You've read
yes.
it. I have seen that it is the strategy of a certain family in a certain political party.
It's a conspiracy book.
Yes,
I've read it
yes,
thoroughly.
I'm
It's a
just saying,
conspiracy book. So
whatever
I've
is
dealt
in the
with this
book,
on the show before.
I get it. Whatever is in the book, it's happening.
And I had a conversation with high-ranking individual here in Ghana.
Yeah.
And he couldn't ascertain the source of the book.
No doubt.
He believes that it's a conspiracy theory that has been put in to muddy the water.
But it is too perfect and precise.
I cannot reveal who I had
Pinpoint
in the
precision.
conversation.
Pinpoint
Right.
precision.
But you're drawing a link
what
between
is happening with the banks to what is in the book, and the book came way before the banking.
2016,
thing happened.
actually.
Yes. So that must have been a very precise prophecy, because it is said that a certain party, a certain family in the party, are bent on ensuring that there's generational wealth, and part of that strategy is to break down banks, the hegemony, the strength of local banks, such that one company would be able to stand. And we are seeing all of this happen. It's a cause to worry. In fact, when you read, I listened to the interview Ato Isian had with Paul Adomotri. He indicated
4 years ago.
Ken Ofori-Atta, the current finance minister, made overtures to him to buy the bank.
Capital Bank.
Capital
yes.
Bank.
True, he did.
And the logical conclusion is that if my bank is insolvent, if my bank is weak, my bank is about to die, why would you want to buy it? No business. You are a business. Eric, a businessman.
It's a strong
business, strong businessman, rich man. Who's even gotten richer in the last 7 years?
The fact that he's a strong businessman doesn't mean he's a rich man. Can we go on? No fight. He's a businessman. It doesn't equate to him being very rich.
No problem.
I'm fine.
He's
being a good boy.
He's made quite a lot of money.
Loyola, please go ahead.
The point is that businesses are suffering. The point is that whatever is in the book is manifesting. The point is that Ken made overtures to buy the bank of Capital Bank. If the bank were not good enough, would Ken have done that? Would any businessman want to buy a liability? Would any businessman want to buy something that would tax him or hang him to death? So there are certain unanswered questions in all of this, and I think the government has not done a lot in trying to solve this. But you see, this is where solution comes. The NDC has promised. John Mahama has said in one of his speeches that when the NDC comes to power, as far as practicable, the licenses of some of these banks that have been revoked will be returned to them. As far as practicable, the NDC will do that when we come back to power. Jobs of people that have been lost, people that have lost their jobs, the NDC will ensure by the resurrection of the banks, people begin to have jobs. So the NDC believes in the fact that the banks should be supported. In fact, the NDC has time without number intervened in solving problems. You remember the pharmaceutical industries, the time they had a problem. The NDC intervened. And now we have
Dampoint, a couple of them.
Yes, and all of these pharmaceutical
some liquidity support.
The intervention of the NDC government by John Mahama is the reason why people have jobs today. The intervention by the NDC government is the reason why the whole chain of the pharmaceutical industry is alive today. So it's important for governments to rather grow rather than build, because everything the NDC has built, this government is continuously destroying in portions never seen before in this country.
And of course, we've had some good conversations, Lawyer Jantua, with Prince Kofi Amoabeng. And of course, the BBC Komla Dumo current award winner stands with media journal Pakwesi Asare. He did speak to Prince Kofi Amoabeng, who did say, and I quote him, "I still maintain that it was a wrong decision for them to collapse UT Bank. I wasn't even the CEO at the time. Ghana is now going for a bailout, and we couldn't bail out a successful company. And I'm saying it depends on the kind of report that went to the authorities, because probably it was made with all sorts of negative things which were not true." Now, he continues by saying that a bailout of UT was necessary because if a bank owes the government about 800 million Ghana cedis, note it, 800 million Ghana cedis, and you use 2.2 billion to collapse it, then that money could have been given to the bank for it to restructure under your supervision being under the Bank of Ghana's supervision, and then you let them pay over a period of 5 years. All the banks in the US that were built out in 2008 have all paid up, and those that didn't pay up have taken other investment decisions. What do you make of this?
Isn't it ironic that the finance minister is the one who supervised the collapse, the collapse of the banks, and then he himself has not been able to handle the economy well? Isn't it ironic? Has he not profited from these bonds that Ghana took? Has he not profited from it? So why should he be there? If the Bank of Ghana, if the Ministry of Finance were private entities, would he not be in the same boat as ACN? Will he not be? So what locus does he have to be part and parcel of talking about this? What locus does the finance minister have? He has collapsed Ghana, hasn't he?
Yes.
DDE. People's monies. What has happened? Has it not been cut?
So you're saying the chicken
is
coming home to
It is the same thing that Capital Bank has done. He's in the same ship. He has no right to even talk about this because he hasn't been able to handle Ghana's economy well. If Bank of Ghana were a private company, they would be in the dock today. Would they not?
Yeah, just hold your fire. I see you're on fire. Please bring him some water, because I want to take this insert as Atuesing had an interaction with Paul Adomotri.
The bank stressful? Was it distressed? You see, like I said to you, if the bank was that bad, our current finance minister Honorable Ken Ofori-Atta, together with the Chief Executive of Enterprise Group, were in my office.
Kelly Gadzepo.
Kelly Gadzepo.
To do what?
We're interested to buy Capital Bank.
No, hold on. Ken Ofori-Atta, the finance minister.
Yes.
And Kelly Gadzepo, his partner at Data Bank and Enterprise, came to see you.
Yes.
This is when Ken was finance minister.
No, before he became finance minister.
Okay.
That's right.
They came to you that they wanted to buy your bank.
Buy the bank. If it was that stressful, would they have done
So this was year?
This was 2016.
I see.
Yes.
They wanted to buy it.
They wanted to buy Capital Bank.
For Data Bank or for Enterprise?
Well, the letter they gave to us
they wrote?
Enterprise Group. Yes, I have a letter to that effect.
Was it distressed?
No, you see, like I said to you, if the bank was that bad, Honorable Ken Ofori-Atta, together with the Chief Executive of Enterprise Group, were in my office. Kelly Gadzepo. To do what? We're interested to buy Capital Bank.
No, hold on. Ken Ofori-Atta, the finance minister.
Yes.
And Kelly Gadzepo, his partner at Data Bank and Enterprise, came to see you.
Yes.
This is when Ken was finance minister.
No, before he became finance minister.
Okay.
That's right.
They came to you that they wanted to buy your bank.
Buy the bank. If it was that stressful, would they have done
So this was year?
This was 2016.
I see.
Yes.
They wanted to buy it.
They wanted to buy Capital Bank.
For Data Bank or for Enterprise?
Well, the letter they gave to us
they wrote?
Enterprise Group. Yes, I have a letter.
Lajanto, what do you make of this? Of course, these may not be prima facie issues, but private conversations, but still at the heart of the matter nonetheless.
Well, he did say he was not finance minister then.
That was in 2016.
2016. The finance minister and Kelly Gadzepo, who was part of Data Bank, approached him. It was a private transaction. Whether that private transaction now leaked into the scheme of affairs when he became Minister of Finance is something that we need to ask. But it was a private... Were you there? Were you there when that conversation was going on? Was Ghana there when that conversation was going on? It would have been different if the offer was made whilst the finance minister was in power or was finance minister. That would be a different kettle of fish. But it was a private one, so I wouldn't want to delve into a private transaction that probably didn't go on. Yeah? Because Paul Adum Otri asked him, was it when he was finance minister? He said no, when he was running Data Bank. So it's a private transaction.
Well, no, people can
infer. But before you come in, though, at the end of the day, it's a private conversation. The entire sector has faced some difficulties. You have a decision that has been made by the supervisory entity.
Yes.
And then you have the one who is responsible at a later date for monetary policy, for the fiscal, as far as we're related, supervising the fiscal aspect of our economy.
Yes.
Making overtures for a decision that was made later on an entity. Irrespective of flouting of regulations. And Atuasian, according to the Boulders report, if you look at the asset quality review, etc., and what the report indicate, as well as their directors, took decisions that flouted regulations.
Yes.
But why would you want to acquire an entity that was not in good standing, and a year later, you as a decision maker, you concur with the supervisory entity that you can go ahead and take your decision?
So you ask yourself the question, what was the intention? What was the finance minister's intention before and after? Did that intention, in terms of he not getting Capital Bank, flow into his decision, irrespective of the irregularities with Capital Bank, flow in his decision to close it down? Because really and truly, if we really delve into it, he could have saved that bank. He could have saved that bank easily. He could have saved any of the banks which he closed down. What was his intention then? Was it based only on the regulatory bit that they didn't adhere to? Because, as you read, Amoabing said he didn't think that the amount of money they owed and the amount of money that was used to close them down was right, because they could have used that money in other ways.
It didn't.
Yes.
You look at the
exactly. So what was the finance minister's intention? He himself now is in the same soup, isn't he? He's in the same soup. So can we say he took a decision that helped the banking industry in closing them down? I don't think so. I don't think so.
Now, Eric, as we conclude on this matter, if we want to take an analysis of what the current capitalization position of the banks are, the current banks that have now been saved and operating, in lieu of DDEP then holding government instrument for it, government is not able to pay the returns, etc., to them onwardly for their customers. If we were supposed to measure the current banks on the issues of capitalization requirement, could we have said that, or could we be saying that some of the banks wouldn't be existing on same indicators?
But you see,
because
you have, when I use the word hindsight, you are not very happy. But you have the benefit of hindsight. So you can make your, if you like, analysis by comparing a previous trend to now. You can do that. Now, so, and a different set of factors as we speak. And so these are issues to do with a DDEP, where the bank of, the government itself are saying that they're putting together some kind of support for these banks that will find themselves in some kind of distress. So this is a totally different scenario. Then when you go to the banks and the reasons that were adduced at the time for closing some of them, you realize that, for example, some of the banks, rather than not being personal, some entities were actually exposed to themselves. When I say exposed to themselves, let's say you own the bank and you owe the bank 900 million. Do you understand what I'm saying? There's a plethora of examples in there, right? And that's why I'm saying that, yes, at the time when you are making those decisions, when it comes to leadership, you live and die by the decisions that you make. It can happen that after doing a post-evaluation, you come to the conclusion that maybe if I had taken my time or had taken this decision, this would have worked. You understand what I'm saying?
From what you're saying, you think from hindsight, perhaps maybe we could have had a better.
But that's what I'm saying. That you couldn't. I like the whole conversation around the fact that maybe you wouldn't be able to paint all the various banks with the same brush. But when you want to delve into the issues, and you are a media person, and you appreciate some of the things, some of these things were extremely dire, right? Issues to do with the capitalization in terms of, did those capital actually exist in how people finding ways, artificial ways of ensuring that they were meeting the minimum capital requirements and the money was not there and all of those things. Immediately that happens, what it means is that the depositor's money is at risk. You understand what I'm saying? And for any government or any person that is making some of these decisions, sometimes you do like a worst case scenario and a best case scenario, and then you make a decision. And in making some of these decisions,
so the question I ask is a very simple question. So, because of...
I understand your question.
No, please. Okay. You understand it, because you're going around it.
I'm not going around. I'm saying that you're mixing two things.
Okay.
Because you're serving me with two scenarios, right?
Different times.
Different times.
Okay. So we'll come back and end on this. But let's go to Armstrong. Armstrong Gold, Alogbe, is currently in one of those communities where we have the spill water from Yakusumbo Dam affecting them. Good morning to you, Armstrong. Where currently are you? What can you tell us by way of the briefing?
Yeah, Roland, currently I'm at Mefe, to be precise.
Okay.
And the situation here is so bad that even where the people slept yesterday, the place they consider safe haven is no longer safe for them, as many of them are beginning to move out from this area. Currently, I'm at Kizito, a place called Kizito in the Mefe area. That is North Tongue, to be precise. And the situation is bad. Their complaint is that NADMON is not doing so much to help the situation here, as they claim some people did not register. So if your name is not found on their paper or their register, they refuse to give you food or mattress or any other relief item they describe. And as it stands right now, the residents here are very upset with the NADMO team. I have personally not set eye on any of the NADMO officials yet to ask them a few questions, but for the residents, the NADMO team come around to just write names, and where your name is not captured, you are not giving anything. And it is therefore asking that there are so many that they don't think NADMO can get access to all of them to get them registered, their name registered. I have here one with me, one of the assembly guys who have been with the people. Come close to me. Let's have this conversation. So, first of all, what's your name and where are you coming from, to be precise?
I'm P.T.S. Monomonyo, and I'm assembly member for my electoral area. And I'm from this town as well. So, what is happening in Mepe Township? It is such that we can't even control this. So, they will have to move to different places. And this is where we call safe haven. So, we move most of the people over here. And unfortunately, what is happening is that we let now more people came around to write some people's name. So, when they brought food items and other things, they only give to those that their names were written, but others that are there, even more than those names that have been written, they don't get anything. We're having calls since yesterday. This morning, that's why I came here to look at the situation myself. And to my dismay, there was no NADMO official over here this morning. And the people are hungry. They are thirsty. What are they doing actually to help us? Mattresses that they brought yesterday, it's only few that got the mattresses. What we learned was they packed most of the mattresses away. Where have they sent all those things to? We are worried as citizens of Mepe. Are we also not part of Ghana? Why this discrimination? We are pleading with government. They should come on board, help us. People are dying. Even if we are not dying natural death, we are dying physically. We plead with you. NADMO should do anything possible to help everybody.
Thank you so much. I'll talk to other people now. This woman is very curious. Let me ask her, what is that? You want to speak? Talk to me. When you be
Madaku nyanya kwenye bese. Achiva demi. Nya fo kata obule chimo mi onu oshi tomo. Titi o kwa nu bagi e mi kata mi le kisi togi e. Titi o va nu mala mama tebe. O ma acho no na mi o ma stress o to ma stress kiri nu ogogbo be. Ga ka o gbo mi le gi e do han le mi ewu. O ma tana so ndudu na mi ha. Ndudu kwa mi hie ne o. Ga ka gi e nya no step ye di mi le. Titi mi o we nya kyo mi chi gi e che nke ga gbo mi e to ga gi e ni be mi ano. Ano se bi ye ke ni tem ya no gi e che nke ga gbo mi e to gbe. E ta mi le kuku debe. No kokolenti na mi gi e nya no de. Nya kwa jijo mi oji na ajama mi obi piki mi onu ma ga no haiwo. Mi de kuku na no ajagbagba gi e mi le he. Mi do kudonu. E ta mi jagba na mi avade. E mi ava ko mi egbo. Ge keke mi ano safe. Ga ka shi amiere. E mi ava wo dolenti na mi de kuku na mi de kuku. Mi so e ho ama wu gale jipo de kuku na mi. Be mi ba pele mi enti na mi agbe mi la bolo ma.
So mi de kudonu, meaning we are the third of that. Roland, I'm moving to where some of the residents slept yesterday, and many of them are trying to prepare something for themselves this morning. And the situation here is so bad, such that if the NADMO people can hear us, they can come to Kizito, to be precise, where many of the residents slept yesterday, to help them halfway. So this is where some of the people slept yesterday, Roland, and many properties have been packed in here. You can see these elderly people here also outlined here. They claim they've lost every single item they've lived for past few years, and many more people are being moved to this place, whilst others are also trying to move out of the area to Accra. And the situation here, Roland, is so bad that if the NADMO people can hear us, we are calling on them to come to the rescue of these people. Roland, I'm hearing that right now the situation has reached Adan, where the flood waters will finally end up into the sea. And the residents of Adan are also calling for the NADMO team there to come to their rescue. As it stands right now, we are told many of the communities along the Adan area also have been hit badly by the floodwaters. Roland.
We'll see how that goes, because from what we're getting from you, the National Disaster Management Organization has written down names, and it looks like the help is not coming. We'll take a look at that. But Loyola, at the end of the day, on hindsight, what have you observed? And you think, looking at the sector we have today, the banking sector, and the decision that was taken in 2017, could have been synced together, and you say that they thoughtfully were right or wrong in taking the decision?
Yeah, Roland, I think that as we speak, the government is still borrowing, the largest borrower from the banks in Ghana, as we speak. So we seem to be repeating the very mistakes of the past. And there's no money. So when you go to EcoBank, you go to Stanbic Bank, you go to Ghana Commercial Bank, all these banks, the government is the #1 borrower. The private businessman cannot compete with the government in borrowing money from these banks. And this is basically setting up a situation where there can be a repeat in the future. But overall, I think that the Bank of Ghana has made several errors. The finance minister, like you rightly said, has presided over this mess. The finance minister in the Bank of Ghana have presided over an economy that has been worse in the history of this country. And just like it happened with the banks they claim to be saving, the people of Ghana shall save the economy of Ghana in December 2024. And John Mahama shall lead that ship.
Lajantua, what about you? Same question. Then and now. You take a look at it.
They didn't anticipate Ghana would be in this situation now with DDEP and all that. Because at the present moment, government is heavily relying on treasury bills for domestic borrowing. And it's put the banks in a certain precarious situation where money is difficult to come by. I believe if they could transpose themselves forward, they would not have collapsed the banks the way they did it. Because that 25 billion that we used has created a challenge. It's part of the challenges we are going through today. And so far as I'm concerned, they shouldn't have collapsed it. And let's learn from it. And that's the sticking point that we need to look at. Will we learn from it going forward? Because it doesn't look as if we tend to learn from it. And I'll once again say I agree with Eric with regards to that chain, supervisors, handlers, all those auditors, they should be questioned so that there is some precedent in place. The next time, if you're an auditor and you're going to audit a bank, you should know if you give the wrong audit, you'd be questioned for it. But I asked the question. So when Atu Essien was taking all this money out of the bank, nobody saw it. If they did see it, did they collude with him? So these are some of the questions that need to be asked. And I'll end by saying the boards of all these banks that have been collapsed, and all these banks that have gone in court today, they should make sure that everybody who is connected to that bank in a responsible position should be questioned.
Including the board? Including
the board and the board chairs.
If I remember vividly, there were a number of actions that were said to have been undertaken. I remember the former president, John Mahama, did say, if you take a look at what the banks owed at the time, being not either able to meet the threshold as far as capitalization is concerned, and then also some other liabilities that led them into that administration, and you take a look at how much has been spent, perhaps those who have taken the decision also should be questioned. Do you think? And that would be foremostly the Bank of Ghana.
But let me ask the question. What goes into deciding the threshold for the banks? What goes into it? What are the conditions and terms that they set to set the threshold for the banks? Maybe the thresholds they set were over-ambitious. It could be so. And so made it difficult to handle. Made it difficult for the banks to handle. But yes, I think those who made the decisions, should they be questioned for those decisions they made? It all boils down, Roland, to intent. What was the intent of some of these decisions they took where the banks are concerned?
Yeah.
And if we want a holistic picture so that we don't go back there again, then that investigation should be done so that we have some kind of copyright or document that we all follow and all make sure that you don't go back there. But most importantly, when these things are being done, the public should be brought in so that we all learn.
Okay.
Because you can never tell.
All right.
Going forward, what's going to happen with elections, types of parties that are going to come in, some of the things they want to come in and do. We should be the watchmen for some of these things that happen.
Okay. Let me say good morning to David Blazanan Jr. Many of you also watching us. And, well, we're sorry that our stream has not been working. Let me just take a couple of your messages before I call it a wrap for the morning. I have this one from Chief Mante. He says, I would like to plead with the NDC youth to stop their cleanup to avoid a clash with the Fixing the Country movement led by NSO Bempa. It says clashes are not good.
But where is that one being held? Is it being held at John Mohammed's house?
Yeah, that's yes. And that day, the NDC youth will be convening a cleanup exercise.
So tired of this thing.
Okay.
It doesn't help anybody.
Let me read some. Okay, you said what?
It doesn't help anybody. No. They are doing what use will it give us?
I mean fixing a country?
How will it? No, these clashes. If it so happens that Bempa is going there, these ones too say they are going there, and there's a clash. How does it help the country?
All right. Atuesian is jailed. What happens to Dr. Mensa Otabil, who was the board chair? And why is now one still walking free? Family and friends, government. And that's, it says Proverbs 29:2. That's Prince Henry. And then also, we have a couple of them. Sampi Yale says, Eric, we have spent 25 billion to save the banks. The customers have not been paid. Again, some. So did we go or did we come? Now, I have this one from Kuntuyeba Kofi. He says, we the youth of the land want to ask Nana Baumia if in any way our forefathers have wronged them in any way. And then we have a couple more messages coming in. All right, so thank you very much, Philip La. We hope that you can come very often as well. And then, of course, Lawyer Jantua, and then Eric Amwakuchum.
The rich businessman.
You guys are going to get... that's not true.
Well, so we'll be cashing out. Make sure you stay with us. But again, we'll bring you comprehensively the latest. And we know that Kitchen Wars, we're having the finale as well. So make sure you stay with us. But let's tell you how Art Therapy could be the savior, because all you need to do is to make sure that you save the date and also come, all of us, let's have fun together with friends and loved ones at Airport West Hotel whilst we sip and paint. The Art Therapy program comes off this Saturday, 28th of October, or Saturday, 28th of October at the Airport West Hotel. For just 220 Ghana cedis per head. Get a package. It comes with complimentary drinks and finger foods. For further inquiries and bookings, make sure you call the numbers 020-433-9005 or 050-1634-238. Come, let's network and socialize. And Airport West Hotel, passion for excellent service. Now let's cash out. Let's do the draw. 3, 2, 1. It's the number 0542239 counting winning. So that's the first draw. Are we doing the second draw? Okay, we're taking a break. When we come back, we'll do more draws for you right here on TV3 New Day. We're taking a break. We'll be right back.
In the first 2 years, your baby will experience amazing growth in so many ways. To fuel it, they need the right nutrition. With Cerelac, one bowl of goodness a day provides the wholesomeness of carefully selected grains and the yummy taste